Hello, and welcome to episode 422 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. As always, joined by Evan Silva and Mike Leone for this series. Evan, how's it going?
It's going great. Ready to jump into tight ends today, right?
Yes, the ultimate episode of this series. Leone, how's it going?
It's going well.
On today's show, we're going to talk all things tight end, what our strategy should be, who we are targeting, sleepers, busts, etc. If you have a draft coming up, we can help you. All of our rankings are continuously updated for what we actually think is important. Most of what you see people talking about there is not that important, but the stuff that actually matters a lot. And we are changing all our rankings for what actually matters. We're putting so much time into all our rankings and projections down to the decimal point for every single player. Also, before we get into it today, note this podcast is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. $2 million the first, $1 million second in their $25 buy-in best ball tournament. Use promo code ETR when you sign up. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Really unbelievable contest. And drafting right now is just great practice for your home league. All right, tight end. We are going to talk through this in the format of home league settings, aka not best ball, not tight end premium, not big tournaments, straightforward 12-team half PPR league against your boys. We're going to eviscerate them. Tight end spots. So how important is it to get elite tight end? There's been so much debate about this. I think that in home leagues, I can beat my opponents up so badly at other positions that it's actually more important in home leagues for me to get elite tight end. And by the way, by elite tight end, we can kind of define what that is. I think it's Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts. Some people would throw Waller in there. Some people would throw Kittle in there. I actually think I'd probably have Waller in there. Kittle is kind of on the fence for me. So Leone, I would ask you, is it important in home league to have elite tight end? And who do you consider the elite tight end tier this year?
Yeah, I feel like it's almost important in every format. I think if you were to miss it too, it's important to not chase and probably just wait, but we can get into that in a little bit. But for me, I think Kelsey's a tier by himself, with Tyreek Hill gone and the way that offense operates. There's some danger that he falls off the age cliff, but the ceiling's so good. And then I think you have a tier of Andrews and Pitts together. I prefer Andrews. I maybe have Andrews half a tier above, but they're together. And then I have Waller decently ahead of Kittle, but I would include Kittle as part of my plan in the top tier, though, especially in half PPR. I think the efficiency upside is there. He starts to get hurt a little bit more in full PPR because I don't think the pass volume is going to be there. But macro approach, I really do like getting elite onesie because you're not ceding an advantage to your opponents then. And it's an advantage that can't really be made up that frequently with like breakout players late because there just aren't that many of those types of profiles in this landscape at tight end. So
I think that's a really important point is that you can't whereas at running back, you can find someone late. At wide receiver, you can find someone late. At running back, you can churn the waiver wire and find someone. It's not happening at tight end. You're not competing with Travis Kelce or Kyle Pitts with guys off the wire. It's just absolutely positively not happening. Evan, I'm curious where you come in on this Pitts, Waller, Kittle stuff. Do you consider them to be in the elite tier of tight end? And what do you think about Waller versus Kittle?
Pitts, Waller, Kittle, that's exactly how I have them ranked in my second tier. I have Andrews in the first tier with Travis Kelce, but it doesn't align with my rankings. I mean, Kelsey's way up high, and Andrews, I actually moved him down like a half round last night. I keep kind of moving him around. I know, he's going to be all pissed at me. He thinks it's because of the draft we did together, the absolute flop of a draft, and I was being passive aggressive. That's what he accused me of being, passive aggressive.
Oh, hey, Leone, I updated the ranks. By the way, I dropped the guy we took in round 2, 7 spots.
Anyways, I mean, I just in the ranking, it doesn't make. And I hate it when this happens when like I have these rankings and then they don't align with the tiers, and it just happens like that sometimes. And this year, it's very prominent. How can you theoretically keep Mark Andrews out of the first tier after? I mean, he's the best receiving tight end in the NFL. It's just his situation is not nearly as environmentally conducive to extreme production as is Travis Kelce's. Yeah. So, I mean, you just got to kind of know that when you're looking at the tiers and the rankings, just kind of understand that. But I am totally with Leone in that, and especially this year, I've been prioritizing getting really one of those two guys or Kyle Pitts. I think that the worst tight end that I've taken this year was like the lowest round in which I've taken a tight end this year was like the 7th round with Hawkinson or Goddard or something like that. But I don't know, just Travis Kelce and I understand that the age thing. The thing is, he didn't really show that like big signs of decline last year, and then now his opportunity has spiked. as they revamp their wide receiver core and that chemistry that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, like Travis Kelce doesn't even have to run the designed route. That again, that's a very, very special quality that you have between a quarterback and a pass catcher.
Travis Kelce did have some really concerning games during the regular season last year, but he showed no signs of aging in the playoffs last year when he was
destroyed.
He destroyed, obviously, in the playoffs last year. Evan, I just want to get a quick Kittle take from you. I don't know if we've spent a lot of time on him. My take is that Kittle can be in the elite tier if he gets targets. The whole question is just targets. Do you consider George Kittle to be in the elite tier with Waller and Pitts kind of in that same range?
I think he's the best all-around tight end in the NFL, and he's going to be wildly inconsistent because not only does he play in one of the run-heaviest offenses in the league that's going to get run heavier with Trey Lance under center, I think, but he also has pretty significant target competition in Debo and Ayuk, and Jaywan Jennings is also, I think, going to become a little bit bigger of a part of their offense this year. But I think he's going to mix in some spiked weeks, but he's going to be frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. The middle tier is where it starts to get a bit hairy here, Leone. There's a lot of opportunity cost to take Dalton Schultz and TJ Hawkinson, where they go, in the 60s or so. There's a lot of wide receivers that I want to take there. So I ended up not taking Dalton Schultz or TJ Hawkinson very much. Dallas Goedert is one whose ADP in home leagues is more palatable to me, around 78th overall in home leagues right now. And I think Dallas Goedert is just an absolute phenomenal talent. Obviously, we have concerns about how run heavy Philly's going to be, and they have two very good wide receivers. But still, I think Dallas Goedert is in play for me at 78. I don't take Schultz and Hawkinson very much. You talked about skipping over this range entirely, though, Leone. What do you do when in spots where you don't land on elite tight end?
Yeah, so skipping that range and then even skipping the range after it. Like, Zach Ertz, I think people are overly just assuming he's going to do what he did at the end of last year when they drafted a talented rookie, and Ertz is pretty old, and give me a wide receiver breakout where he's going. I'm not taking, Dawson Knox at pick 98 when I can take Kenneth Walker as a running back on my bench who could win me the league down the stretch. What I'm doing is I'm waiting even more. The big breakout guy that I like that has such a good price tag that to me it doesn't matter if he flops is Albert O from Denver. His per route run stuff last year was amazing. Now you trade Noah Fant and you swap out Drew Lock / Teddy Bridgewater for Russell Wilson. This is what you want to bet on. I don't know if the odds of it hitting are super high, but he's one of the few guys down here where if it does hit, you actually maybe could match some of those high end tight ends. Whereas everyone else is just kind of a guy, and I'm waiting. I think Higbee and Irv Smith are fine guys. Later, they're okay. Maybe Tunyon gets some more target looks with Devontae Adams gone, and we already know he's a pretty good touchdown guy. But in general, I'm just waiting almost as long as possible. I think up to tight end 20. I mean, you get Gerald Everett, Tunyon. I think those guys aren't that much different than some of the tight ends you would have to take 4 or 5 rounds earlier.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to take exception with that because we've seen TJ Hawkinson be able to catch 7 balls a game consistently, right? And it was a short stretch, but he did. We've seen Dallas Goedert have a breakout. Dalton Schultz, considering what's going on in Dallas, people are going to say, well, Dalton Schultz is going to go out there and catch 80 balls this year, Leone. What are you talking about? So I get the arguments for those guys. It's you have to compare them against the wide receivers and running backs going in that range.
If I was to, and again, I was more comparing to the tight ends after that. I think in particular, those guys you mentioned, they do have better chance of breaking out, but they cost so much. The opportunity cost is so high. If I were to go out on a limb on one of those guys, Hawkinson kind of has the pedigree there as far as age, just enough production,
Mackey Award,
prospect profile, mother effing Mackey Award, but he goes too early. So it's almost moot.
Yeah,
he does. And, I was on JJ's show recently and we were talking about Hawkinson. God, he just ripped Hawkinson to shreds. He hates Hawkinson this year. I was worried that if Hawkinson's mom listened to the show, she might, I don't know. But Hawkinson has been, I think, kind of a disappointment, really, to this point in his career. And he does have legitimate target competition, especially in the middle of the field with the slot receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Where are you guys at on Njoku? We just received word today that Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended 11 games. So I've always just a tantalizing talent is David Njoku, and he's been very inconsistent, but his preseason usage stuff has been awesome. He's going to be a legit every down player. I'm always tempted with David Njoku.
Yeah, I just
go ahead, Leone.
I'm worried that offense while Watson's out is going to be really, really run heavy.
Yeah.
Even if Njoku's on the field a ton, they're going to use multiple tight ends. And I don't know if it adds up. And this is one of those things where real life value versus fantasy value, they give him this huge deal, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to see like an 18% target share. Like we have him for like a low teens target share, and it's just hard to get there and not a high volume passing offense. Could be wrong. Maybe the role did grow that much and the talent is there, but like, I think he's fine. Like he goes tight end 18. Like when you get to that range, he's fine. Like I'm probably waiting to tight end 18 and then taking my favorite guy. If he's your favorite guy there though, I'm not really going to argue it.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine. Just bet on athleticism and raw ability on David Njoku and let the chips fall when he's tight end 18. I think makes sense. Guys that I'm out on, Leone mentioned some, but certainly out on Dawson Knox. I'm out on Mike Gesicki, which Evan and I have explained why on previous podcasts. I'm out on Cole Kmet. I know there's some like Cole Kmet stands out there, but man, this Bears offensive line and Bears offense, like I can't take it on Cole Kmet. Guys that I do like late, we already talked about Alberto. We also got a positive report today from Adam Schefter on, by the way, we're recording this on August 18th, on Irv Smith. Irv Smith looks like he's going to be a go for week one, expected to be a go for week one, despite his thumb issue that he's been battling for the last few weeks or so. So that's good news on Irv. I would throw Pat Fryermuth, put on Earth to score touchdowns in the mix. Gerald Everett, I know Leone mentioned. And then breaking the PSM, of course, I'd be remiss if I did not mention Mo Alley Cox. I think Mo Alley Cox is going to play a ton this year, like almost every snap. And dude is really hard to cover in the red zone. And when you get down into that back end range, like tight ends that can score touchdowns are going to be like the only way you can compete with the Pitts and the Kelsey and the Andrews and the Waller and the Kittle teams and stuff like that.
And you look at his target competition behind Michael Pittman. We're talking about a rookie in Alec Pierce and Paris Campbell, who's never been able to stay healthy. Go ahead, Leone.
Well, there's one guy I really want to mention because I've seen him go all over the place, but Noah Fant at times goes like T20 or later. And yeah, he's not in a great spot, but it's not that much different of a spot he was in last year with kind of a boring offense and bad quarterback play. So he has, the talent. Like I want to bet on the talent. And I do think even though you've got Lockett, Metcalf, there's not a lot of peripheral pieces that are taking up chunks of targets there. It could be a pretty core key three there for Seattle. So I like betting on him.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about Dawson Knox because I understand the downside case for him, but I feel like people are focusing too much on that. I know his touchdown rate wasn't, you're not going to be able to continue that. I mean, 9 touchdowns on like 50 catches like that, that's really tough to do. Right. But he does have an established locked in red zone role. He's been developing this rapport with Josh Allen. They've got, besides Stephon Diggs, I mean, they have a lot of shuffling in their receiver core. How truly confident are we in Gabe Davis being this massive breakout? There are cases that to be made against Gabriel Davis. We know that they're going to have a really high pass rate, and we know that Dawson Knox is going to be on the field a shit ton. So I feel like the way to view Dawson Knox is actually to be optimistic about him and not to try to tear him apart.
Yeah. My take is that guys who have these unsustainable touchdown rates are really hard for me to get behind, but Leone's the Buffalo guy. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good to look at both the bear and bull cases on guys, and you make a good bull case. They certainly don't have the wide receiver depth they've had in the past. So if he expands his target ability, in addition, that could more than offset some of the efficiency laps. He just goes so early that I feel like we have these types of guys we bet on quite often. And the most likely case with Dawson Knox is he's like not going to score that many points per game more than a guy that goes 4 rounds later. There probably is a higher end ceiling on him that's better on some of these other guys though. So like if you were going to gamble, I think that's okay. We have him behind ADP just because he goes T10, he goes top 100. So it's not the way I like to build, but I do like, he's an athletic guy in the right offense. I'm skeptical of the targets.
In college, he had 18 career catches and 0 career touchdowns, but he was an awesome athlete. He's like one of the testaments, and George Kittle, him and George Kittle, 2 of the testaments that college production for tight ends just doesn't really matter that much. It's if you're athletic and you're physical and you're tough and you can get on the field, like you can be a factor at tight end in the NFL, regardless of, how much you produced as a tight end in college.
Yeah, I think the Noah Fant thing that, as Leone mentioned, is interesting. Also, just a really, really good athlete with first round draft capital and a pass catcher. We obviously expect this passing offense to be broken under Geno Smith and Drew Lock, but that is priced in a big way to Noah Fant because literally he's like free. Like no one takes him at all. So deeper formats, I think that's okay. But again, we prefer the weaker my opponents are, the more I want to have elite tight end because I can crush them at wide receiver anyways. I can crush them at running back anyways. But if I miss out on Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Waller, maybe Kittle, well, if I miss out on that, there's like no way that I'm going to go into all these matchups with a disadvantage at tight end, which I don't want to do. It's just unnecessary, I guess is my point. All right. We said it all on all 4 positions. Hope you guys have enjoyed this series as much as we have enjoyed doing it. Good luck out there in all your drafts. Take no prisoners, no beers, no drugs, no girls. We're going to the draft and we're going to dominate our opponents.
No.
We're out for blood.
Horrible advice. Horrible advice.
What's beer?
All right. For Leone, for Silva, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.